Hello, the following is an interview I did with Ozzy Yoga. She is a wonderful New York City-based yoga instructor currently teaching at Sway Yoga, Heatwise Yoga, and Solid Gold Yogi, where I did this interview. You can check her Instagram out, her YouTube, and her website down below. And also a link to my local yoga studio, Baby Cobra, which is donation-based. That's where we met in Yoshio's class. Without further ado, let's get into the interview.
Right. Hello, my name is Ozzy. I'm a yoga teacher in New York City since 2016. We are in one of my yoga studios right now. I teach here at Solid Gold Yogi. We have someone looking at me.
Yeah, we just did your class. It was wonderful.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Back
that
to
was your
basics
first class
today.
with me?
Yes, and we actually met in Yoshio's class over at Baby Cobra.
Yes. So Yoshio is one of my favorite teachers in New York. I practiced with him, very long time, I guess. Around 2016, I started practicing with him. And this is the only class in Baby Cobra that I can take with him because my schedule is very busy. So that's one class I'm doing once a week, and that's where we met.
So how long have you been? Well, let's go back to the very beginning. When did you initially hear about yoga? When was it introduced to you?
I heard about yoga, I guess, in my 20s, but I never really practiced. I took one or two classes here and there, but I was feeling it's too easy because I was more I used to do martial arts back then, and I was into I guess wilder, stronger practices, which yoga is one of them, I believe, right now, but I didn't know it when I was younger. So it was never so interesting for me to take a yoga class. Whenever I took a class, probably they were putting me in a beginner's class, and it was always so easy and not much challenge. I was feeling it's too slow, and I had such a distracted mind that I was getting bored in yoga classes when I first start and experience it.
And where was that?
That was in Turkey in my 20s, which I am almost 40 now. And then I start doing yoga early in my 30s again, which this time I start practicing power vinyasa, stronger styles, and I just hooked. I think somehow, unfortunately, I can't remember which teacher was the first teacher that hooked me in, but I felt that connection between mind and body in that class, and I realized, I can actually tap in my mind and slow down my thinking and feel my breath, and that's how it started. Okay, that is something meditative.
You think that's something that you feel like yoga taught you versus not something you had in martial arts?
I think martial arts are really good to calm your mind, and it gives you a great body awareness too. But it could be me also. I don't know if I cannot speak for all martial arts or everybody practicing martial arts. But for me, it was more like a fun practice. I was so focused on doing a move or doing it right or challenging the person across to me. So it was more like a fun game than tuning inward and understanding what I am going through at the moment. It wasn't much internal for me.
You remember the moment
yoga.
when you came to that realization where you finally just thought, you had the space to do that?
Can I get the question again?
Like, when was the moment, with this guru that you mentioned that you were able to have that kind of inner peace?
It wasn't a guru, actually. I was practicing in a studio in Turkey before I moved to New York. I used to live in Istanbul. And I start taking like stronger classes, and I start getting into that breath body awareness in the class. It wasn't one teacher. I was trying different teachers and different classes, different levels, styles, and somehow I tap into that when I'm doing it. But I can say the like real hook happened after I came to New York. I was practicing in Turkey, but I was doing it a few times a week. But when I came here, there was a studio called Yoga to the People. I don't know if you heard them. They closed during the pandemic.
Yoshio used to teach there, right?
Yoshio used to teach there. I used to teach there too. So I took a class in Yoga to the People, and they had this like really fast power vinyasa classes, which was very challenging for a beginner student. And I think that was the time I really felt like, okay, I'm coming back tomorrow, and I'm coming back tomorrow, and I'm coming back tomorrow. And then it became like my everyday practice with Yoga to the People. And after a year practicing there, I took my training with them. I started teaching with them. It became my like home studio. I was teaching and practicing there for 4 years.
Wow. So that was fast. Like, you just came here and then
Yeah.
you found your spot.
I mean, I was also in a place that I was changing my life completely. Like, I had a day job. I was in advertising and working really long hours, living not much healthy. Like, I was drinking, smoking, all those
Is that something you
habits.
cut out now?
Yeah, I quit smoking long time ago, but I drink occasionally, but it's not in my regular diet anymore.
So how has yoga shifted your perspective just on a day-to-day basis?
I mean, I think it's related with body awareness, like the body awareness yoga gave to me. And especially if you're practicing daily, you doing the same postures every other day, and you can feel like what you're eating or what you're drinking, how they're affecting your practice or your physical condition. So if you're doing a warrior one every other day, and if you had a few drinks day before, you feel like how challenging it becomes, or how you feel inside of the posture. And all that's like little details about noticing your body and noticing how drinking is affecting your body, or eating this, eating that is affecting your body. It just helps you to understand what is good for you and what is not. And for me, I never decided like, okay, I'm gonna stop drinking or I'm gonna stop eating meat. It just came along with the practice. I was just practicing every day, and I stopped craving for drinks, or like eating meat became too much for my body. It's like it was making me feel tired, making me feel heavy. So I stopped eating meat after, I guess, 3 years into my practice. So it's all the like lifestyle and diet is actually came with the yoga. First, I just started doing yoga every day, and then it just shifted my life around. It wasn't like, okay, I have to stop eating this because I'm a yogi now. It just happened. I can most like basically say it just came with practice.
Where do you feel like you started in your yoga journey, in a physical sense, to where you are now? Like, how much more flexible are you? How much more healthy do you feel from those lifestyle changes and eating habits? Like, how physically have you changed?
I changed a lot. let me start with physical part of it, and then I believe there's a huge mental part too. Physically, I'm a lot more stronger and flexible right now. Like, I always been a flexible person than average. But with yoga practice, it totally doubled up.
And you noticed that from starting as someone who trained in martial arts, even.
I mean, I'm sure martial arts gave me some flexibility too, but I used to be a flexible child too. When I keep aging, of course, I got less flexible, but I think I kept some of it with martial arts. And when I start doing daily yoga, I was noticing like when I see the other people in the room, I was like in an average flexibility. I wasn't like so stiff I was seeing other people stiffer than me in the room. But with daily yoga, it got a lot more deeper. Like, I'm really flexible right now. Of course, what that means, if you compare with a yogi that is practicing for 20 years, I'm not that flexible, but I am a lot more flexible than any average yogi.
And do you feel like that's the place where you feel good in terms of just, I don't know, your bodily movement, like you're happy where you are? I mean, obviously you're always progressing, but...
I'm happy with my flexibility right now. I'm actually trying to get less flexible in some parts of my body because I have like a great joint flexibility too. And if you are not strong enough, that makes you easily injure that joint flexibility. So like in my personal practices, I don't try to flex my joints so much. I work on the muscle flexibility more. But I'm also a lot more stronger than I was before. Like, I used to be really skinny. Now my body weight is a lot more than it was before, but I mostly have muscles, so I feel a lot more stronger and, healthy in my body. But also for me, the most important part of yoga is the mental space that gives to you. I am an anxious person. Like, my nature is tend to be anxious in small things, and I get anxiety very often.
Could you give an example of some of those things?
For example, before I start teaching yoga, it was the hardest thing for me to stand in front of a group of people and give a speech. Now I teach classes like full of people. Or when I get into a new place, if I don't know anyone, it was hard for me to communicate with the people or start conversations. And I realized after my yoga practice, I was using alcohol to actually help me that way, like to be in a group of people or like socialize. I needed alcohol to ease me out and help me to get into, I don't know, conversations or new group of people. And with yoga, I realized that anxiety is like a circling ball in me that is always there. Those are just like two basic examples I can first think of, but there's like, if you're an anxious person, you don't even know what will trigger it. Like, sometimes you just wake up anxious, and breath control, body control is actually so helpful to calm that nervous system and make you feel like more present and calm in your body. So when I noticed that aspect of yoga, that I can like actually control my thinking, my feelings, my anxiety, and all those stuff that I wasn't much control of before, I think that was the point I really hooked on, and I still use it in my like day-to-day life. Before like traveling or before anything that gives me anxiety, I usually either do some meditation or some like asana practice or breathing practice, which helps a lot.
It's really awesome to hear.
Yeah. And I have this like also mood swings that used to be a lot stronger before my yoga practice. Like I get into high and lows very easily. And before my yoga practice, it was a lot often, like I was getting into those swings through the day a lot more, many more times. And it was harder to pull myself out of it when I get into like deep lows or highs. Right now, I feel like I can balance those a lot easier because I have this awareness. I have more knowledge how my brain works, how my thinking patterns are, so I can adjust them in a way to keep myself in more centered and balance, which is a great help for mental health for sure.
What about the practice do you think gives you that sense of awareness? Is it just the mind-body connection, or is there some spiritual element?
I think both. Like when I first start, for me, it was only a mind-body connection, like being aware and controlling your thinking, your breathing was the biggest thing when I first start. But like everything, when you keep doing it, you start diving deeper. For me right now, it's also a spiritual practice. Like I believe on karma. I try to live like a yogi, like try not to harm anyone, harm anything, don't harm myself. So like all those little aspects of being yogi and spiritually is actually helps me in daily life too. Like saying the truth or trying to do the right thing in situations, or controlling your emotions in a way that doesn't affect you or other people badly. So I think it's important too, spiritual part of it, but I don't believe that you have to be like really spiritual to do yoga. I think yoga itself is already so helpful for anyone to have a healthy body and mind. I mean, when I say yoga, I'm talking about asana practice. Whole yoga itself is spiritual already. But I feel like you don't have to be taking the entire yoga practice to, like you don't have to be a yogi to practice asana. I think asana practice is already very helpful for anyone to gain some awareness and consciousness. And if you continue practicing that, it goes there anyhow. Mm-hmm. So when I teach my classes, which I usually teach beginner students, I always add a little bit more spirituality in it.
I like the Om at the end of class.
Yeah, I love the sound of Om, so
Not
I
every
try to add
teacher
that.
does that. So.
I think that's also related. Like I know there is a lot of yoga teachers out there because it's just like you do 200 training and you're a yoga teacher, right? You don't learn much about the spiritual part of it. And if you are not really practicing it in your personal life daily, that part doesn't grow for you and you stay in your like physical practice part of it, which is okay. I'm totally okay with that. Like if people just want to take the asana and live with it, that's still great. But I feel like those people are the ones that they don't feel to om or chant or like talk about the spiritual part of the practice because they don't embody that part.
Yeah, then I brought friends to classes. Have you taken Shansi's class before?
Yeah.
He does the
Oh,
Om.
Shansi, no. I haven't practiced with him, sorry.
He does the Om a few times throughout his class and some different breathing techniques. And a couple of my friends are like, "Are you in a cult?"
Exactly.
But what sort of things do you do to deepen the spiritual side of your practice?
I mean, meditation is really big part of it for me. Like, I take asana practice as a meditation too, but seated still meditation is actually helps me a lot to feel that deeper connection with myself and with everything else around me. But I also do chanting. I do sound practices with like chakra meditation practices with the sounds. I try to take classes with like people who is into spiritual part of the practice, and I try to learn from them. There's a yoga studio in New York, Dharma Yoga. They have a Guru Dharma Mitra. He's almost 85, I guess. So I like going visiting him time to time, just take a class and hear from him. I search a lot online, like anything that comes to my mind as a question or about yoga. I search and read a lot. I read some books, of course, about yoga.
Do
Like
you have a favorite text?
It's the most common and well-known one anyhow, Bhagavad Gita.
I'm reading that right now, actually.
Which one you are reading?
The Living Gita.
Okay, I don't know that one. There's so many versions of it, and there is one author that explains it so well for like today's people, because Bhagavad Gita is a really old text from India that like it's hard to understand what it is saying exactly with today's life. So finding the good translation is actually important, and there's one I really like. I can give you the name. I cannot remember the.
Do you have like a quick summary of the high level interpretation?
The whole book? No.
Just like the setup, because in the Living Gita, I think it mentions like the battlefield's like supposed to be symbolic of the body and.
Well, the whole Gita is about a battlefield. So the story is actually told over a battlefield that between actually a family battle, and it gives all the text over that battle and all the wisdom about like how you should do, how you shouldn't, all those things. But that's the thing, how you interpret it is really important, and that's why translator is so important, because it's like 5,000 years ago, a battle between cousins doesn't match today's work,
Right.
today's world and relationships. So there's so much wisdom in it, but I think it's...
What's one of the biggest takeaways, just one of them, that you apply in your day-to-day life now?
Tough question. I mean, I cannot say for sure I took this from Bhagavad Gita, because like it's a whole book about all sorts of wisdom. But my biggest learn through my practice, I can say, through this last 7-8 years of my life, I try to do my best day to day about everything, about living. Like instead of going into places that I feel like discouraged or low, or I don't know. I used to feel that kind of fear or discouragement to stop me doing things. Now I feel like each day is a new new start, new battle, or a new opportunity to try it again. So, and I don't like really judge myself how hard I am trying or how easy I'm doing it. I just try to do my best each day, start it all over again, and do your best for today, whatever it is. Like, it might not be as good as my yesterday, but I still try my best each day. So I think it's kind of it's related with compassion too. It's deeper than what I'm saying right now, I guess. It's kind of self-compassion and allowing yourself to try it, I would say.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I can think of today. Yeah.
I would say, just from me reading the first third of it, that seems like something I'm picking up on as well. So that's interesting.
Interesting. That's nice. Nice to hear.
Sort of the last area of things that I want to ask you about is specific to you being a teacher in New York. Can you speak a little bit about what that transition to being a teacher was like, and then how is your perspective unique to the city, and like how does the city shape the way that you approach teaching and just survive as a human in this world?
That's not gonna be so. Like, I don't think I can talk about the other cities, that how it feels teaching in the other cities, because I start my yoga teaching journey in New York, and I'm living in New York since. At the beginning, it was really challenging for me to like stand in front of a class and teach a class, actually, because I had this like anxiety issue that I was still trying to control and deal with. And when you start teaching a full class, it's like 60 minutes of talking, and you plan that sequence before the class, and you need to keep it in your mind. You need to express all the like little directions, body parts, keep people in the present moment. It's a lot to do when you first start doing it. And I think my first 2-3 months of teaching was really challenging, and like each time a huge task for me. But for those first months, I start really enjoying it. Like before, it was like, oh my God, how I'm gonna do it again? I'm gonna do it again. Okay, I will do it. It was like I need to encourage myself to go there and teach.
How often were you teaching those first 3 months?
Twice a week, or like once a week. It was changing. And I teach like a lot of free classes in the studio. I took my training. So those like first 2-3 months was always free classes. And I was just like showing up. It was so exciting for me, but I was also so nervous and afraid, like I'm going to do something wrong or say something wrong, or like they're not going to enjoy the class, or
So how did you
all those
overcome
stuff.
that?
With doing it. I think that's the thing I was talking about before, like self-compassion and putting yourself out there even though you're scared was really helpful. I was like taking it day by day and not expecting much from myself, and like starting it over, doing it again and doing my best. And after a few months, it became easier to speak all those, postures and be in front of the people, speak all the yoga postures and words become easier. And when it starts getting easier, I start enjoying it more. It became more like communication between students and me than like I'm just speaking to them. So I started really enjoying teaching classes because I was seeing the effect on people, and like people comes in bad mood or like saggy faces, and then they leave with a smile, And that's like, for me, it's incredible to see that smile on people, like they feeling so much better and going into the world again, continue their life after a class.
So the camera cut unexpectedly there. Sorry. I was asking you, is that what made you decide to start teaching yoga?
I think so. It's a huge part of it, like touching people's life and changing their mood or day or life, even with a small effect or just with one class. But when I first decided to take my training, I wasn't actually even thinking that I will be a teacher at the end. I just took the training to learn more about yoga and like improve my practice. I think deep down I knew I wanted to teach, but it was like a scary idea for me to stand in front of a class and teach a yoga class. So I did it anyhow, and when I see that, when I did it, I realized that how much it's changing people's current feelings or emotions or mood.
What made you decide to just get up and go for it after completing the training?
I mean, I just wanted to experience it, and I want to challenge myself too. Like, I was so afraid of it, and that was a good reason for me to push through. Like, I wouldn't just turn my back and go away because I'm scared, you know? That's also the other thing yoga gave me. Like, when I feel like something makes me nervous, I usually push through it right now. Old me will be probably pulling back and finding an excuse and saying like, okay, I don't want to do it anyhow. But right now I can listen myself a lot deeper and like differentiate the feeling of not doing something because I'm scared or because I don't want it. So if I see that I want to do something but I'm afraid of it, then I push through it. And yoga helps with that too. Yeah.
Okay, we're good on that.
Are we good?
Yep. Just gotta be sure. That was a little eerie for me.
For sure.
So, going back to the original question about New York City, do you feel like...
Oh yeah, I guess I
being-
messed up that question.
Oh, no, it's fine. We can...
Did I answer
bother
it?
you. Yeah, I just want to go back to that. Do you feel like because you became a teacher in New York City and your practice was so shaped by like that first, what was it called again, that first studio?
Yoga to the people.
Yoga to the people, that brings a unique flavor to how you teach, or have you teach anywhere else?
I did. I taught a lot of classes in like different studios in New York, but also during the pandemic, I taught online. I was doing my own Zoom stuff, and like there was people joining from different countries, like from Turkey, which I am from, Europe or Canada. I got like a lot of international students joining in my classes in the Zoom. So I have experience with like non-New York students too, but I always been a New York teacher, so I didn't teach in long time in another country or another city. But I taught some classes, like I go back and forth to Turkey to visit my family, so when I'm there I taught some classes in Turkey. My sister lives in Belgium. When I visit her, I taught some classes in Belgium. It's a very different experience, like teaching in other countries, because people approaches yoga so much different, and like depending of country or city, I'm sure it's like even changes city to city. But in New York, I feel like everybody likes strong like fast classes because that's kind of like nature of New York. Everything is so fast. There's no like slowing down. So if you're teaching in New York, I think you always start fast, and then once people get off that like sweat or rush in them with all the movement, you can start slowing them down. When I'm teaching in Belgium, I felt that people needed like longer holds, slower pace than I usually teach because I did something like I teach here. They enjoyed it, but at the end of the class, I heard like, "Wow, that was a fast class. I'm not used to moving like that." And you could have seen it in their face when they're practicing. They were like a bit surprised, and maybe it was the studio I was teaching. Maybe their style is slower than usual, but I felt like, wow, that's like New York people will be just like vibing with this. Those guys are getting challenged. Yeah, I think it's different teaching in different communities, and even in New York, it's like depends which studio you're teaching. Expectation changes a lot, and I feel like once you read the room and understand the vibes, like what people are expecting, it's a lot easier to find the like middle spot for each studio or each country or each city. But if you are teaching regularly, it becomes easier to read that and like make your decision. I think you also ask what was the challenges being a teacher in yoga and New York City?
Yeah, is there anything unique to surviving?
I mean, I think the payment part is the biggest challenge in New York because New York is such an expensive place, and teaching yoga is a physical job. Like, you cannot teach 8 classes a day, or depends your age, of course, but you cannot teach like so many more yoga classes in one day. When I first started teaching full time, I was doing like 4 or 5 classes a day, which was a lot. Right now, I cannot teach that much in one day. I mean, I can, but it will be a miserable life. I will be so tired. But back then, I was so excited to teach. And like teaching I was learning something new when I teach each time. And I was like improving my skills of teaching. I'm learning and improving myself every day. But
Do you feel like you found the balance?
right now, I teach less in a day, and yeah, I still learn from teaching. I still learn from different students, different teachers, but it wasn't as like when I first started. Every single teaching experience was a learning experience, and it was so exciting. So I was okay with doing it more often and getting more tired when I was younger. But right now I feel like teaching 3 classes a day is my balance place, even sometimes 2. I like teaching 2 classes a day, actually, that's the best. But it's hard to continue living with teaching 2 classes a day. So I do 2-3 classes a day right now, and it's kind of my balance spot.
All the different studios. How does travel affect you?
Travel is the tiring part right now. If I'm teaching in 2-3 studios a day, I need to go like one to another, which is so hard in New York to like commute. Takes a lot of time and makes you so much more tired.
Use the metro? Do you bike?
I do both. If I'm teaching in Brooklyn, I bike in the warm days. But if I'm teaching in the city, I usually take subway. But I try to set my schedule in a way that like I teach 2-3 classes in one studio one day, and then 2-3 classes in another studio the other day. So I try to set my classes back to back in one studio, which makes it so much easier that I need to go back and forth, which is not easy. Especially if you're a new teacher, it's almost impossible because you are like picking any gig that you can find. So it becomes like one class in Midtown Manhattan, one class in Bushwick, one class in Park Slope. So it's so tiring that way. And when you first start teaching, they don't pay you much because you're a new teacher, which makes sense. And I think that's the biggest challenge of like teaching with small amount of income and teaching a lot of classes in different spots. It's like a very tiring job with not really making much money.
So what keeps you in the city then?
I think it's personal. Like I like city life. I like being in the city, and New York was like very new for me when I first came here, and that was the same time I start my teaching experience. So everything was new. City was new, teaching was new, and like traveling in the city was new. So I was happy doing it because it was all new and entertaining for me. But right now I don't want to travel that much. So I try to like, I don't even try. I'm picky with my schedule right now. Like I pick classes and I don't accept like some teaching opportunities because it's a tough commute, or I have another class in the other side of the city that day, so I don't want to do back and forth going commute work, or they don't pay much, so I don't want to like take classes really low payments because it's a lot of effort to teach one class. It depends. Like if I love the community and the place, I still accept lower payments, but it literally, I'm picky with it right now. So I choose the community, I choose the studio, choose the commute, choose the payment, and I try to find a balance all between them, among them.
So I guess sort of the last couple of things.
Okay.
Do you have anything that you'd like to say to your students all around the city?
Mm-hmm.
And then do you have any things that you'd like to say to teachers around the city that might potentially want to come on this?
That's cool. Sure. I can tell my students that do your best every day. Like, just don't stop doing it. I know practicing yoga daily is a lot of work, and it doesn't have to be daily, regularly, I will say. Practicing regularly is like you put your time in it, your effort in it, your energy in it. You need to balance your life around it, like your schedule around it, and it's a lot of effort, but it's worth it. So try to do your best to keep your practice. It doesn't have to be so regular. You don't have to practice 1 hour, 2 hours a day, but just keep practicing. Keep it in your life. And it will worth it. For the teachers, I don't know what to say for the teachers. They should just keep doing what they're doing. I think teaching yoga is a beautiful thing. I think we change people's life and we change world in a really small aspect. And all those small changes makes a big impact in the future in somewhere. I believe it's not worthless, like teaching mindfulness and yoga, and I think the world needs us. So if there's teachers out there, God bless. Keep going.
All right, the very last thing is, are there any poses that you want to show that have really opened up your personal practice specific to like your body that other people maybe with similar bodies might be able to relate to or just look at and admire the progression that you've gone through?
I mean, I love all the yoga poses. It's hard to pick one. I will say forearm stand. It's not like special to my body or anything, but the pincha that you find your balance on your forearms is one of the special ones for me, because when I first see or try that posture, I felt like it's literally impossible to find a balance there. And
That's me and Yogi.
exactly, right? It feels like, well, that doesn't make sense for human body. No, I cannot find a balance there, I was feeling. But it turned out like one of my favorite postures that I can do with very little effort, and I can like even stand there and meditate into the posture. And I think because of that, it's like special for me, because I will never imagine that I can do it with such little effort, and I can right now. And it's like, that's kind of magic.
Yeah. Do you want to show us?
You want me to make one?
I hope you enjoyed our conversation today. Big thanks again to Ozzy Yoga for coming on the show. She was the first one, very bravely accepted my invitation to do this, to start this series with me. And I hope I can interview many others around the city and just hear about different ways individuals approach their yoga practice from all walks of life, all around the world. I think that would be really cool to see in one series. And if there's anyone you know that you think would be a good candidate to come on this program, please leave a comment below or send them my way, and maybe we can make it happen. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.